Welcome to Road to Recovery.
Hello and welcome to Road to Recovery, Advocacy and Insights for Trucking Accidents with Sagi Shackhead. Sagi is founder of Shackhead Law Personal Injury Lawyers and is ranked as one of the top 100 trial lawyers in the United States by the American Trial Lawyers Association. With a wealth of experience in personal injury, wrongful death, and complex litigation cases, he passionately advocates for victims and has recovered multi-million-dollar settlements in damages for his clients. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is all about reconstructing a trucking accident. We're going to talk about how lawyers use data to prove liability. Sagi, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Are you happy not having to be the host this time?
Yes. I was taking away your duties, but I prefer not to be the host if I don't have to.
You'd rather answer the questions.
Yes.
That's fine. That's good. That means I still have a job. Thank you for that.
Yes.
All right. So how important is the accident reconstructionist's process for proving fault in a trucking accident personal injury case?
So in a trucking case, do I say you need accident reconstructionist in every case? Probably not. But in a lot of cases, you do. And the reason why you do is these insurance companies and the trucking companies, they have teams in place. So in the past, we've talked about how the trucking companies have teams in place immediately after the crash happens. Before these drivers are calling 911, they're actually calling the risk management team and getting their team in place. And that part of their team involves having an accident reconstruction expert. The problem on the plaintiff's side, meaning the person who brings the lawsuit, we don't get involved until later on. And so sometimes it's a little harder for us to reconstruct an accident, especially when there's a he said, she said, or sometimes the way the crash happened, nobody knows because there isn't a dash cam or a video from a street cam to pick up how the crash occurred. And then we need accident reconstruction experts to come there and assist us in putting the crash together. So normally on a run-of-the-mill rear end collision, you probably don't need an accident reconstruction expert. I say still hire one because you want to find out what speed the truck driver was driving, what was the forces that caused the impact. So it's good to have the accident reconstruction expert on that one. It's really case by case, but it's extremely important for your case. If you're going to be representing people involved in truck accidents, get an accident reconstructionist involved early in the case so you can preserve the evidence that you need.
What type of data do you typically use when you're reconstructing a trucking accident?
So we're looking for anything that's on the road. For example, skid marks that are on the road, where you can see the brake marks. We're looking for video, anything that can piece the puzzle together. So it doesn't have to be video of the crash, although that's very helpful. It can be video from a mile away, video from a block away. It could be street cam, someone else's video cam that caught it. In a trucking setting, the more information we have, the better. So if there's witnesses who saw what happened or can tell us a little bit before the crash occurred, we want to know that information. So it's not just the accident reconstructionist, it's getting out there, speaking to the witnesses, going to the scene with the accident reconstruction expert so you can see what there is to see. Because sometimes just looking at that police report, it'll give you some information, but it's not the same as going to the scene. And that doesn't mean just using Google Earth, because that's not the way the scene was at that time. Now, if you're getting in the case later on, then you really can't do anything about it, but still try to get to the scene. Go and get a feel for what happened. Every case is different.
What are some of the most critical data points that you rely on when you're trying to determine fault in an accident?
So speed, obviously, that would be one of the bigger ones that we want to know. The other one we want to know is what route was the driver taking? How long was the driver on the road? So when we talk about, for example, fatigue, drivers are fatigued, how long they've been on the road, when they started working, their driver logs would really help. There's telematics that specifically can track the route that the truck driver took. Additionally, you want to know if we can get the black box data recorder. That'll also help us pinpoint what was going on, usually about 5 seconds before the crash. So the accident reconstructionist will take that information from the witnesses, the data recorder, the telematics. If there's a cell phone involved, almost everybody in the United States has a cell phone if they're driving, especially truck drivers. Some of them have more than one cell phone. So we really need to find that out. They have a company cell phone and then they have a personal cell phone. You also want to get the download on the cell phone, because while they may not be on the phone talking, we've had cases where people were watching movies while they're driving. And of course, it became a case because they caused a crash. And then we found out that they were streaming a movie at the same time they were driving. And you wonder why crashes occur and accidents occur. That's why. So the cell phone data, if there's more than one, find out if there's more than one. The black box data, the telematics, the GPS, the driver logs. I would even want the personnel file, although that's not for the accident reconstruction. But we want to know so the accident reconstructionist can find out and put together, how much time did the trucker have to avoid this crash? What kind of avoidance system could they have taken? And how did the crash occur? Those are kind of the things that we get and we learn from an accident reconstruction expert.
What movie was he watching? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, he denied he was watching a movie, so we had to get that information from our forensic who took the data and found that information out for us.
I'm going to go with Titanic. He was watching Titanic.
We'll go with that.
So how do you gather all this data? I mean, you're talking about a lot of different stuff, the telematics, the GPS data, the traffic cameras. Like, how do you go about getting all this stuff?
Yeah, so what's different, I would say, with our firm than other firms, there's firms that handle, all types of cases. We're really geared towards trucking cases. So our team, anyone on our team can really, once we get a case, they can really pick it up and start running with it, from immediately knowing that we need to get the accident reconstructionist involved, someone to do the download on the black box, get our investigator out there, speak to the witnesses right away, because things change, and witnesses, you want to get to them before the insurance company gets to them. The telematics, that's something you're not getting easily. You're going to have to go to court. They're not voluntarily giving you any information. Telematics is interesting because you're not going to get that voluntarily. But what do I mean by telematics? Telematics will tell us it's data that the trucking company keeps on its employees. And what do I mean? So they have a little front-facing camera and then an exterior camera looking at where the vehicle is going, and the front-facing camera, which will be facing the driver. It'll tell you if the driver is nodding off. There's an AI with the telematics that'll send a signal to the supervisor, hey, this guy's falling asleep on the road. Or if the person is swerving or getting in and out of their lane, the AI is gotten really good. It'll obviously warn the company something's going on. It'll warn that driver's supervisor that this driver is a hazard. And so they need to do something about it. Problem is they don't do anything about it. It's great to have the technology, but if getting the warnings and you don't do anything about it, and then someone gets really hurt or someone's life is lost because you're just failing to supervise. You have to supervise these people if you're going to put the technology and take that step and, be safer, do the right thing. So you got the black box data, you got the witnesses, you got the telematics, which can help put the pieces of the puzzle together. You've got the GPS data, the fuel logs, the driver logs, the receipts that we have from the drivers on where they stopped, to get food, to get fuel. Those are all important things. The scene, when you go to the scene and you preserve the scene by taking photographs, taking measurements, those are all important. Going to the vehicle inspection, the truck inspection. So you're doing the car inspection if it's a car, or a motorcycle. And then you actually go to the truck inspection. See what you can find on that truck. They measure the truck. They want to know the height of the truck. Were the wheels, what were the depth of the wheels, the tread on the wheels? They want to know everything so they can take all these data points and they come together. And then you have your accident reconstruction expert where he or she will be able to, they put the pieces of the puzzle together and then they can give you a solid opinion as to what was the speed, how the crash occurred. They can even do an animation based on all those data points where you can see how the crash occurred based on those data points. So of course, if they're using incorrect data, you're going to have an incorrect animation. So the goal is to get as many of the data points as possible to help get the best understanding of what happened on that date of the crash.
Wow, the telematics thing is really cool. Is it like real time? Are the supervisors getting this info in real time, or do they get it after the fact?
Yeah, they get it in real time. Usually within a couple of seconds of it happening, you'll see in the documentation that we've gotten in cases in the past where you will have the supervisor getting a log of all the mistakes that the individual made. Now, if they didn't make any mistakes, there's not going to be a log, and we've had cases where the individual driver, again, was nodding off multiple times and the company didn't do anything about it. When I say multiple times, I mean days upon days upon days. They're nodding off, they're switching lanes, nobody's paying attention, and the company just keeps putting this driver on the road. So, if the person's nodding off, maybe they have a problem. Maybe they're not sleeping well. Maybe there are other things going on in their life. Maybe they have a second job. These are things that really, if they're driving 80,000 pounds of machinery and they're not going 1 mile an hour, they're going 60, 65 miles an hour. These are life-changing machines, sometimes for the worse. So you really need to use that data. There's a reason why they have the data, because it makes our roads safer, but only if you're following up and using that data. That's why the AI is created, to check. It's sort of like supervising the employee, but the AI can't say, take that employee off the road. It may make that suggestion, but if the human is not saying, hey, we got to get this driver off the road, he's tired or she's tired, they need to get off the road and rest. And this way they don't cause a collision. They don't cause anyone else to get hurt. They don't veer off the roadway. We have a case right now where the truck driver just veered onto the sidewalk, ran a guy over. I think I've mentioned this before in the past. The person had to have their leg amputated. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just on the sidewalk when the truck driver lost control. That's obviously a fatigue case. You don't lose control of your truck just if you're driving normally and you're not fatigued. So that's kind of why you want to get the data points. You can reconstruct that accident. So when the defense comes in and says, oh, no, that's not the way it happened, you can say, well, here's how we got to where we got to. We have all these data points. We've done the GPS. We've done the data recorder. We've spoken to witnesses. We have the telematics. We have the driver's logs. We have the pictures, the video, the inspection. And based on all that, we were able to create this reconstruction. And this is within a reasonable degree of engineering probability, is what they say. That's the magic language. This is how the crash occurred. And now the jury has a better understanding of the crash and why they came to their opinion. But that all comes at the beginning of the case. And that's why, if you're a client or if you're an attorney, you need to get this information right away. Do not wait. You have to hire a company an attorney or a law firm that knows what they're doing to get this information. That lost information can really hurt the case, and it hurts the value of the case.
In your experience, how does the use of accident reconstruction data influence the way an insurance company might approach a settlement offer or litigation?
So a lot of times you'll see insurance companies, if you're going into a contested liability case, meaning where they're fighting it, if you don't have your accident recon really looking into the case and getting the data points, the insurance company knows. They know how to take advantage of lawyers who are being lazy, who don't want to work, who don't want to gather those data points. And again, never stop exploring and finding out what the driver was doing, what the company was doing, because the more you explore and dig deep into discovery, the more you'll find out what was really going on. So if you're in a case, don't settle that case without getting the telematics. They're going to fight you on it. Then it's going to be court order after court order, but you're entitled to it. Get that information. It's a world of a difference when you get that information and you find out what was really going on behind this crash that occurred. Not what was just going on with the driver, but what was going on with the company. What was the company doing to protect people on the roadway? Or were they just caring about getting from point A to Z and they didn't care how they got it done and put everybody, you and I, Kevin, and everyone else on the roadway at risk? So the goal is not to put us at risk. The goal is to do it safely, to do it the right way, the reasonable way, so nobody gets hurt. So in terms of going back to your question, and when insurance companies, how do they look at it? If you don't have an accident reconstruction expert, they know they're going to be able to take advantage of you if it's a case that requires one, right? Again, simple rear end might not require one. I mean, if it's a catastrophic injury, you better get one. So, but it does help put together the pieces of the puzzle and show the insurance company that they need to pay on the case or why their driver is at fault.
As we wrap up, can you share an example from your practice where accident reconstruction data directly impacted the outcome of a case?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a case, and we spoke about it in the past. This was the case where our 89-year-old plaintiff, the person that was injured, ran into the back of a FPL power truck that was lit up. And so in that case, we hired an accident reconstruction expert and some other experts as well, one of them being a human factors expert. But the accident reconstruction expert was able to reconstruct that case. And we couldn't get that case settled, so we had to go to trial. But he's retired now, but he did an amazing job, the accident reconstructionist, putting it all together and showing the jury what made sense on what happened that day. And it was very instrumental in helping us attack the defense accident reconstruction expert because they tried to play with the numbers and try to show that the crash happened a different way, which didn't make sense and contradicted the evidence. So in that case, not only did we have to have the accident reconstruction expert early in the case, but we had them do a reconstruction of how the crash occurred. And then we had them show that to the jury, answer how they got to that specific scenario and reconstruction and why that makes sense. And then obviously we were able to get 100% responsibility on the Florida Power and Light or FPL truck for not having their warning devices out there. But before we could show that, we had to show that had they had their warning devices on the roadway with the accident reconstruction expert, we were able to show that that vehicle would have stopped. It would have given our client ample warning to be able to stop the vehicle. So that's how we use the accident reconstruction expert in that case, but we use them in a lot of cases. So that's just one example of many that I have.
I have a good friend of mine who loves to golf and he's all about the data. And he always says, respect the data. And that he tracks stuff and all that. Respect the data. I mean, it's got a lot of value, obviously. It's something that you can't ignore.
Yeah, and it's a game changer. So you got to go out there, do the work, and get the data, and then it'll be a game changer for the case.
Certainly seems that way. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to Road to Recovery, Advocacy and Insights for Trucking Accidents with Sagi Shackhead. For more information or to connect with Sagi, visit shackheadlaw.com. And please like and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a review. Sagi, it's always great to see you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.